just be so happy to see each and every one of you here today. Maureen, thank you very much for piping Mom in. She'd be so honored to have a piper here. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay. Mom was always one to bend the rules, and why should that stop now? If she was here, she'd be saying, Ingrid, make sure everyone has something to eat, a drink, and how about a little something to remember the day? My granddaughter, Indy.
In Emma's memory, hopefully you will have something to drink. There are Welsh tea cakes, oatmeal shortbread, and ginger snaps on each table, all of her favorites. Who hasn't had some of these treats delivered to you or enjoyed some with Emma over the years? For you to remember the day, please take a copy of one of Emma's paintings. They each have a joke or one of her favorite sayings on the back.
We're going to take a stroll through a life well lived. We hope you're comfy, and we promise to try not to keep you here all day. She was a very busy woman. Today, Mom, we celebrate your full and incredible life that you lived.
Thank you for coming to celebrate Emma's life with us.
Psalm 23, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies.
You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all my days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Well, this is a poem that Emma had chosen specially for this day for her funeral. As you can see on the back, this is the poem I'm about to read. To those I love and those who loved me. When I am gone, release me, let me go. I I have so many things to see and do. You mustn't tie yourself to me with tears. Be happy that we had so many years. I gave to you, my love. You can only guess how much you gave to me in happiness. I thank you for the love you each have shown, but now it's time I traveled on alone. So grieve a while for me, if grieve you must, then let your grief be comforted by trust. It's only a while that we must part, so bless the memories within your heart. I won't be far away, for life goes on, so if you need me, call and I will come. Though you can't see or touch me, I'll be near, and if you listen with your heart, you'll hear all my love around you, soft and clear. And then, when you must come this way alone, I'll greet you with a smile and say, welcome home.
Lillian Grace Una Holm was born in Gimli, Manitoba. The eldest daughter of Florence Jacobson and Otto Holm, along with her two younger brothers, Milton and Gordon. They lived along Highway 9 on the outskirts of Gimli in the same yard as Otto's parents and brothers. From a very young age, Lillian's bright blue eyes always had a spark. When she was questioned what she remembered about her younger years, she said that her mom was always a lot of fun, but didn't hesitate to give spankings to keep the kids in line. She didn't have a lot of memories of her dad because he wasn't home very much. He was a fisherman and was gone often with sleighs and boxes behind the horses. He'd head out to Lake Winnipeg. When the fishermen got home, they would go to the ice house in Uncle Albert's yard. Lil and Mickey would go into the sleighs and get the chocolate bars that the men didn't eat. Otto would often take his catch into Selkirk and Winnipeg. He was also a fireman and general laborer at the air base. He passed away when Lil was 8. Lillian's best friend was Cecile Haas. She didn't live far away, and light or dark, it was a quick run over to play. Cecile and Lil spent the night before Cecile's wedding sharing a bed, chatting all night until Cecile's mom told the two of them they had to be quiet. They celebrated many events together in their life, and once again lived very close to one another at the Bolton. Well, Lil lived there. School wasn't her favorite place to be. She would much rather be riding her bike or doing absolutely anything else. At the end of grade 4, Lil went home and told her mom that report cards weren't coming home until September. Meanwhile, Lil had failed, and she threw her report card down the outhouse hole. She said it was the most horrible summer, worrying that her mom would find out that she failed. In September, when she went back to school, she went back to her 4th grade class, but there were so many Air Force children that there was no room for her. So she was put in the 5th grade class. She knew she was lucky, and she never had to tell her mom. Any holidays, their grandparents would come to pick up the 3 kids with horse and carriage and take them to Arberg. Lil would help babysit her younger cousins and help out where she was told. She loved it all. She loved to go to Senna and Jim's on their porch and look at the boxes of magazines and National Geographics. Lil learned to carve small animals or toys while in Arberg, and she would leave them around town for little people to pick up and find as a little treat. With their house so close to the train tracks in Gimli, Lil and Mickey would often go sneak onto the passenger train after everyone had gotten off to gather all of the treasures that they could find. Coins, candy, drinks, or magazines, and they would run away as quick as they could so they wouldn't get caught by the conductor. Lil was a good athlete. She would run the races at the Icelandic celebration because the prize was a medal and money, which she would use to get candy or as she got older into the dance. At the festival one year, Lil's mom said it was time to go, and she climbed up high in the tree and said, "No way, I'm staying." At one point, the local bootlegger, Josie, asked Lil's mom if she could take Lil into Winnipeg on the train with her so that she didn't draw suspicion to herself and her stash of illegal liquor with the young girl in tow. Lil remembers not knowing why she was scared, but there wasn't anything good happening, so she made sure she behaved and stayed quiet. Luckily, they always made it home safe. Florence remarried Omar in 1947. After the government expropriated their Gimli property, they moved the house and family into Fort Garry to Holly Avenue. Now she got to see what the big city was all about.
After moving to Fort Garry, Lil adjusted very well. Her earliest friend was Dodo Plouffe, who was also a cousin. She attended Bishop Grandin School in Fort Garry, where she made many friends, including a young, quiet guy named Vince.
Lil played baseball at Victoria Community Club from 12 to 14. Her first job was at Miss Winnipeg, a takeout burger restaurant, and then the Shake and Take. Here, Lil found her groove for gently bending the rules. She gave away a lot of ice cream. If the kids came in with a penny or just couldn't afford a treat, Lil wouldn't disappoint. Everyone left happy. Workers from the Rugby Inn across the street would come and trade burgers for ice cream, a win for all included. Her boss was not so happy, but as Lil said, "He didn't fire me."
Lil really started to notice Vince when they were about 14 or 15 years old. When he started getting a little taller, sitting a little closer to her, and they began sharing his lunch. His mom always made the most delicious lunches.
Age 15, in spring, Lil got a job at Stahl & Son Sporting Goods, cutting and trimming materials and jackets for modeling of clients. She had to promise her bosses she had quit school. They were furious when Lil went back to school.
Gibbs started asking Lil to go to the matinee movies at the Grand Park Theater. Back then, it was only 35 cents to get in. But it was when he asked her to go to Casey's shows, the amusement rides, and paid her way, that she knew things with Gib were getting more serious. This was their first real date. Gib's brother Bill saw them on the Ferris wheel that day, and then the news got out that they were a couple.
At 16, Lil asked her mom if she could quit school, to which she replied, if you get a job, yes you can. Determined, Lil got a job at the Hudson's Bay Toy Department.
When Lil turned sweet 16, Gib borrowed his mother's credit card and went to Eaton's. He bought a silver mirror and a brush set, and he had it engraved with Lil's name. Gib's mom was very angry when she saw the bill and how much Gib had paid for it. Gib had to pay back every single cent, but to this day, it was one of Lil's most cherished gifts.
That same year, someone recognized Lil was a talented baseball player and encouraged her to try out for the West Kildonan Tigerettes. The YMCA by the Bay downtown was where they had their tryouts. She played from age 16 to 25. Practices were at Perth and Salter, after work and on the weekends. She was the catcher and center field. In 2004, the team was inducted into the Manitoba Softball Hall of Fame. 18 months after starting at the toy department, Lil got the call into the office. She was offered a job at the switchboard. She worked there for 15 years. Being the youngest one, everyone watched out for her. At their staff party, they even saved all the cherries from the punch for her, no one realizing they were soaked in liquor. When Lil ended up in the head position, she decided to play Christmas carols in June. That prank almost cost her her job.
When asked why Lil chose Gib over all the other boys, Lil said because he wasn't jealous. He always supported her activities and interests. He was very sweet and made her feel really special. When they were 18, Gibby asked Lil to marry him, to which she responded, "Nope, we are too young and I'm not ready for marriage." Disappointed, Gibby said he would wait until she was ready. At age 21, Gib said, "Lil, now it's time." And she agreed happily. At their social, a young man approached Omar and asked his permission to marry Lil. Omar said, "Well, if she says yes to you, then you better ask her tonight. I won't stop you." He asked Lil and told Lil that she should choose him over Gib because he would give her a better life. Her answer is very, very obvious. Her and Gib got married in October 1956. They spent a wonderful 64 years together. On the day of their wedding, she washed her Uncle Ole's car prior to the wedding, showing up to the church, still in her pin curls, running out of time to finish her hair.
At 21, a fellow Tigerette told Lil that the senior ladies Heather Bell Pipe Band needed members for their band. Icelandic Lil became the first non-Scot to play in the band. She played side drums for 5 years, even though she was booed the first time in her first grade. That was because she wasn't Scottish. The band played Rainbow Stage and the Summington's Yards on their opening nights.
One time the band traveled by bus to Sault Ste. Marie and stayed in a school. The ladies decided it would be a good idea to pull the beds out of the gym and have bed races across the road. Great fun until the police scooped them up, put them in the paddy wagon, and took them on a very bumpy ride before taking them back to school.
So before I continue, I would just like to let everybody know that my daughter Imani is actually wearing one of Emma's Tigerette jackets from back when she was a ball player. So Gibby followed Lil around while she played ball. He was a positive critic and an avid fan. He enjoyed going to concerts while she was playing with the Heather Bells. This started a lifelong enjoyment of concerts and music for both of them. Often they would travel to fairs to enjoy the country and fiddle music.
As time went on, Lil never was the one to sit back. She never shied away from volunteering. She kept busy with many organizations, sport events, community fundraisers, flipping burgers or pancakes, and some of the fire department events. She enjoyed helping decorate the fire trucks for the parades. She received many recognitions for volunteer work, including the Order of the Gate Award, which is displayed in the corner over there.
Gib always stood by and supported Lil during her volunteer efforts. Many times, as he walked through the door after his shift at the fire department, he would be met with a list of things to do, items to deliver, and how to help out in one of her ventures. He was usually very patient and accepted being voluntold gracefully, but he was often heard here saying, "Yes, dear." They worked together very well for the most part. One thing for certain is they always complimented one another, and together they made a great team.
One time, while at a wedding reception in the basement of a church, Lil had to go to the washroom. When she went to leave, the door would not open. So she put her shoulder into the door and it broke open. Only to her surprise was a priest sitting there in his rectory. He pointed that there was 2 doors in the bathroom to a very embarrassed Lil.
Lil worked at the U of M bookstore for 15 years in the art supply department. Shortly after she started, she realized in order to do her job the best to her abilities, she needed to know more about these products and started art lessons. This was the birth of her art and her amazing painting. She was the lady everyone would seek out. She was so knowledgeable and did her job with passion, often helping in many ways, many more ways than art, pointing students in directions around Winnipeg to make their lives so much more easier.
Lil and Gib always enjoyed camping, their drives through the countryside, and their adventures that took them to many different countries. They thoroughly enjoyed the last trips with Bill and Rita, and with Mickey, Gloria, Gordy, and Cindy. Spending time with their siblings made for very special memories. And Gibby's Corner, their very favorite spot, is the cornerstone to so many family events and happy times.
Lil never drove in a straight line. She always had many stops to make. Many times an errand that should have taken a couple minutes turned into hours long. If you were a passenger, you never knew where you might end up. Maybe you were one of the lucky ones who ended up on one of her interlake tours. They were always fun and interesting.
In the end, life wasn't as Lil and Gib would have planned for themselves. The love they had for one another shone no matter what the curveballs they had to endure. As in life, Gib waited patiently for Lil to join him. It's comforting to know that Gibby was there to welcome her and to know that one day Amma will be waiting for all of us, of course, to welcome us with a tasty baking tray.
On January 31st, 1981, Lil became a charter member of the Ladies Auxiliary Fraternal Order of Eagles, Fort Garry, number 3870. She was just 2 months short of being a 42-year member. For your information, the charter is just sitting here beside us. Lil was one of 3 trustees, a position she held for 7 years, from 2011 to 2018, and was appointed by the president as mother in 2014. As our mother, she was concerned about the health and welfare of each member. As a trustee, she assisted in ensuring the kitchen was in good order, supplies were available, and luncheons following meetings, memorial service, joint installations, and other events were prepared. Lil worked very hard. She could always be found in the kitchen prepping vegetables for the fall supper. She wouldn't sit down to rest when encouraged to do so, until we threatened to call Ingrid to pick her up and take her home. I don't think she was really afraid of Ingrid. What she was afraid of was that she might have to leave. With a friendly, welcoming smile, she handed out plates and cutlery at our fall supper. She was a great ambassador. Lil was aware of how important it was for the auxiliary to raise funds through dinners, raffles, etc. She generously donated a painting which we will raffle off in December at our Ladies Only Night Out. You probably would have seen it when you walked in. It's hanging in the doorway. It's a picture of the pansies. It's beautiful. She also gave cards to our sick visiting chair and for us to present to special guests. You could not find a more considerate and generous person than Lil. Every year on the 3rd Sunday in March, we hold a memorial service open to the public where we remember all our deceased auxiliary and area members. Lil will be among those forever remembered. I would like to read a poem by Jody Daly, which I believe is very fitting for this celebration. We are here to celebrate your life and the measure of its worth, and every single life you touched while you were on this earth. We wish to pay our last respects. That's why we are all here, to thank you for your friendship and all the memories we hold dear. It's been a privilege to have known you. We were family, not just friends, and we will carry you in our spirits until we meet again. At this time, I'd like to ask auxiliary members to please rise. Present the salutation sign and repeat after me. Dear one of our sisterhood, may eternal peace be yours. Thank you.
What an honor to be here for Lil. I've known Lil for 14 years. I've known Lil for 14 years. This is just a hiccup in the life of friendships Lil typically nourished. But what an impact she made on me and my wife Cheryl. It was odd that I felt the closest to Lil right from the beginning. For Cheryl and I, Lil opened up her heart and with open arms welcomed us into her life and wonderful family. It was as if she had already known us and was just catching up. My wife Cheryl felt like a daughter to Lil and sister to Ingrid. We both held her in the highest regard and loved her immensely. I first met Lil when I was welcomed into the St. Patel art group. I broke the tradition by not being a watercolor artist, and Lil immediately took me under her wing. While my personality did not need nurturing, Lil had a way of calming and directing me without me even knowing it. Lil was an accomplished, experienced artist who was busy with her own works, but she pushed her work aside to put me in the forefront. Lil introduced me to exhibit opportunities as I was new to the Winnipeg art scene. She called friends she knew to get me involved with Artorama, the Manitoba Fisheries Competition, Brushworks, and many others. Lil the artist had a vast body of work and everything else that went with it, like cards and prints. She wanted to make sure everyone could afford a piece of her work. As an artist, Lil understood and mastered the principles of painting and compositions, but more important, understood the importance of encouraging and helping other artists. Lil's art is unique. It depicts the simplest things in life and is drawn from life experiences. Glimpses into what was important to her, love and laughter, and situations that she found funny and true to life. No one will ever forget her paintings. The red hat ladies laughing and dancing, little hockey players peering over the boards at the rink, the birds meeting on the hydro lines, tiny behinds peering over the Gimli concrete wall, family gathering full of pumpkins, and we will never forget her dramatic, glorious birch trees. Her paintings showcased everyday life and the people around her, full of meaning, movement, and color, and what stories they told. Every painting had a story to tell, and Lil would explain exactly what she was doing at the time, why she painted it, and why it was important. I cannot exactly remember when my thoughts of Lil the artist and her astounding interpretive abilities suddenly switched from Lil the artist to Lil the beautiful person. But it happened, and just like her paintings, it provoked thought and focus on the little everyday but important things in life. All the subjects depicted in Lil's paintings. All of you know that Lil was very engaging. She loved to talk to everyone. Her smile and warmth, even the toughest times, became the more and more overriding attribute to me than Lil the artist. And I understood that this was Lil's greatest gift to us. A great interpretive watercolor artist, yes, without question. but an even greater human being. Thank you, Lil, for all you have done. Thank you for allowing us into your life. Thank you.
I first met Lil in the spring of 1965 when we moved to our home on Tulane Bay. Gibsons were the first ones to move onto the bay, and we were the second. It was an instant friendship which carried on for 57 years. We shared many activities and fun times together. Lots of tears have been shed over the loss of our good friend Lil, but now we should celebrate the times that we had with her through a few stories about her. When I think about Lil, there are a few words that instantly pop into my mind. Kind, thoughtful, fun-loving, energetic, compassionate, generous, adventurous, and a fighter. First, a story about kind, caring, and generous Lil. Several years ago, Lil was driving down Dalhousie and was back-ended by another vehicle. Upon examining the damage, it was obvious that a report and claim had to be made. Details were exchanged with the gentleman at fault while he pleaded with her not to report the accident. As Lil drove away, he followed her to her home and gave her the sad story that he did not have vehicle insurance, was living in poverty with his family in a basement suite in the area. You can guess the result. No report was made, and instead Lil raided her own garden and began supplying the family with cabbages, carrots, etc. However, another gesture of kindness turned into a scary situation when, during a yard sale Lil had at her home, a complete stranger approached her with a story of how she was a foreign student living with her aunt in the area, and the sob story was that her aunt was mean to her and kept locking her out of the house. As you can guess, the student begged Lil to take her into her home, and the kind and caring Lil did. However, within a few days, this person was ordering Lil around, trying to break up her marriage and issuing threats if things did not go as she dictated. Curiously, right after 9/11, this person left the house, saying that she'd be back for a suitcase, and threatened Lil if she dared to open it. It's a mystery that has never been solved. The adventurous Lil loved the outdoors, wide open spaces, and she had a true country spirit. As most of you know, Lil and I were Girl Guides leaders together, and what we enjoyed most was the camping part of guiding. We planned a wilderness camp at one of Lil's friends' properties in the Arness area. Food was purchased, trailers were packed, and we were all prepared to leave the next day. That evening, Bob called Lil to say that there had been a cougar sighting in the area. What to do? Our husbands both assured us that with all the noise and activity around that was going to be going around, no cougar would stick around. So off we went. The trees were cut down, shelters were made, meals prepared, and then it was time for sleep. Once the guides were settled down for the night, we leaders decided it was time for us to bed down as well. Our prepared Lil, brandishing a hatchet, declared she was going to sleep at the entrance of our shelter just in case. Okay, so Lil, the known sleepwalker with a hatchet in her hand, there was no way we were going to let that happen. Actually, I don't think any of us leaders got very much sleep that weekend. except maybe for Lil, who we designated to the very back of the shelter. Now the fun Lil. I'm sure many of you could come up with a lot of good stories about her. One of my memories is when we were in our late 40s and we went to a concert at the arena to see a group from Australia called Men at Work. Seated on either side of us were a group of young fellows, probably in their late teens or early 20s, and the one beside Lil gave her a slim, brown, lit cigarette and asked her to pass it on to his friend who was sitting on the other side of me. He kindly asked, "Go ahead and have a puff if you like." We passed it on, no puffs. And turning to Lil, I said, "Gee, if we'd have known that we could get away with something like that, maybe we should have smuggled in a treat." With that said, Lil opens up her purse, pulls out a Mickey with a mixed beverage and a couple of glasses. And no, we did not share. As a fighter, Lil wanted so much to do everything that she could do before she had her strokes, and she tried. The spirit was there, but the body held her back. She was also always cheerful and had interesting stories to tell. Sitting on the deck of her Waverly suite was one of Lil's special delights. There she enjoyed a wonderful view of the prairie space, watching her great-grandkids romp around the yard, and she especially liked seeing the deer and her friends, the red foxes. There are many more little stories, but with so many good memories that we all have of her, she will be remembered for a long time. Rest easy, old buddy.
That's a hard part.
Yeah.
Person here, tough Helen, yeah. My name is Diane Walden, and I was a neighbor and friend of Lil's for 66 years. And I'm going to tell you about the first time ever I saw Lil Gibson. It was May 1966. My husband and I were driving out to see our new home, which was being built at number 7 Tulane Bay. On Pasadena, we saw a woman, a huge woman, a very huge woman, a very pregnant, very huge woman, and she was mixing cement to pave the driveway. Right? We were amazed. I was also pregnant, and I was about 8 months pregnant, and I could hardly walk, and this woman is mixing cement. Oh, we just could not believe it. But she always amazed me. What she wanted to do, she did, and she did it well. She succeeded at everything. But she was always doing something for other people, even Vince. And only 2 weeks after this episode with the cement, Ingrid was born. May 15, 1966. And that year, there were 7 babies born on the bay. There were 6 girls and 1 boy. Ingrid Gibson, Joanne Stevens, Lisa Nemeth, Carrie Walton, my daughter, Karen Dargent, Kim Penhall, and the lone boy was Richie Hildebrand. All went to school together, and many of the girls were in brownies and guides, soccer, ringette, and many are still good friends. So, another memory of Lil. September at last. The kids are going back to school. You know what that means for the mothers. To celebrate their new freedom, Lil, Helen, and Diane got on their bikes and we rode to the underpass of the Perimeter Highway. There, we each opened a bottle of beer to celebrate our new freedom. But there were several workers there, and they were watching these crazy women, laughing and thinking, is this what suburban housewives do for fun at 10:30 in the morning? And indeed, we were having fun, laughing as we drank our beer. When the beer was finished, we got on our bikes and started for home. However, on King's Drive, just down there, we noticed a very unusual sight. A toilet was sitting in the middle of the front yard. So you can guess what's next. Lil rushed over and sat on it. So we were laughing. I think there's a picture somewhere of this. So you can ask about that. Gales of laughter then and for many years to come as we remembered our great adventure. And everything was always an adventure with Lil. Each day was an opportunity to celebrate life and to enjoy each and every day. And as many of you know, Helen and Lil were Girl Guide leaders for many years, and many hours were spent on their adventures. The Girl Guide's motto was, be prepared. And every event and every outing was definitely well prepared. Adventures became lifetime memories for many girls who now realize how fortunate they were to have such dedicated and prepared leaders. The Girl Guide slogan is do a good turn every day. And Lil certainly did a good turn daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. She was certainly an angel doing good deeds for others, but always with a twinkle in her eye, a hearty laugh, and a warm hug. Thank you.
My name is Amanda, and I am one of Lil's granddaughters. And I want to start by saying that I have had a very hard time condensing all the memories that I have of and with my grandmother. It feels like there's really not ever enough time or words to share how special she was to me and my family. We were so lucky growing up because we were very close to our Amma and got to spend a lot of time with her. She would pull us out of school from time to time to go adventuring with her, whether it was heading to the lake to go peel beets in our panties on the front lawn, driving up to Souris to pick up a fifth wheel, spending a week in Austin at the rodeo, or camping at Beaver Creek. We were never, ever bored with Amma. And trust me, we learned the hard way that you never tell Amma that you're bored, because believe me, she will find chores for you to do. My sisters and I spent a lot of time out at the cabin Gibby's Corner with Amma and Papa. She'd pick us up on a Friday evening and declare, away we go like a herd of turtles. We loved making strawberry jam, going for walks, exploring Hecla Island, fishing off Nasa Pier, and especially visiting relatives and checking out the farms in Arbor. Amma loved sharing her space with us and teaching us new things. When I started having kids, I started bringing them up to the cabin, and a whole new generation got to enjoy. We spent a lot of time walking the shores of Lake Winnipeg, looking for lucky stones, which many of you know are the rocks with a hole right through. She taught many people how to find those rocks, but we are not supposed to tell anybody about these rocks or where to find them. But I don't think she ever left her home without a lucky stone in her purse or her pocket. For over 20 years, I attended Manitoba Theatre Centre once a month with my Amma and her friends. I loved listening to the ladies reminisce about their jobs in their youth, the trouble they used to get into, and of course you all know my Amma, so you know it was quite a lot, and many of their funny stories. If you have ever attended a play with Amma, You know how excited she can get, often expressing her joy during the quiet part by asking you loudly, "Hey, you see that?" One time, I baked Welsh tea cakes to treat the ladies on the way to the theater using my grandmother's recipe. Don't worry, I didn't make any of the ones here today, so you should all be fine. My grandma took one out of the bag, dramatically started choking, and announced to her friends, "We're gonna have to make a pit stop for coffee on the way home, so none of you choke and die," because she thought they were too dry. It is not the first time that my Amma criticized my cooking. I once made a very delicious matrimonial cake, and she couldn't stop eating it. All the while telling me that you have to be so careful about pits in the dates. She made it to the last square of the cake, and she found one, and boy did I hear it then. If you've ever made the dainty sandwiches with Amma, I'm sure you got your wrists slapped because you rolled the bread too thin or because you put on too much egg salad. Nonetheless, we were all very happy to enjoy baking and learning from her. One of my very favorite memories of my Amma is when she took me and my sister Caitlin, who were not of driving age yet, up to Arbor to learn how to drive in the hayfield. Back and forth we went, cruising through the fields. Luckily for us, we were not in the car when it later caught on fire due to all the hay stuck in the undercarriage. Amma she just loved her great-grandchildren very much. There was nothing that she loved more than just sitting and watching them. When we announced the pregnancy of our last little baby, Amari, Amma's excitement was almost more than mine. She'd tell her friends, "Amanda's baby will be here any day now," even though there was still months to go. Amma always took the time to tell me that I was a great mom, and how lucky my children are. I learned from the best, not only my Amma, but my mom. And my kids and my nephews, they're so lucky, especially because of all the time that we got to spend with her. When mobility got difficult for Amma, my mom would make sure that Amma still got to be an active part of all of our lives. We are all truly blessed. I never thought that Amma would be gone. We all know she had 9 lives. But she will live on forever, especially with all the lives that she touched. I love you, Amma.
My name is Caitlin. Amma lived her life in a way that no one could ever say anything bad about her. She would go out of her way to do everything for absolutely anybody. From the time we were young, Amma encouraged us to be ourselves in every single way, no matter how crazy we would get. She would often encourage us to sing at the top of our lungs and loved when we would do it absolutely anywhere. Until we found her Monty Python cassette tape. We listened to it on repeat until we memorized it. She would giggle while we would march around her house singing these awfully racist and extremely inappropriate songs at the top of our lungs. It didn't matter to her until one day she took us to Safeway. We marched around the grocery store as loud as we could, singing, "Sit on my face and tell me that you love me." Amma was walking around shushing us, telling us we weren't allowed to sing. I remember when Amma would paint, she would make this little noise with every brush stroke she did. And how when she would cook, you would ask her to teach you whatever she was cooking, and she would just say if she didn't know the recipe, she would just throw in however much you felt. One time when I was grounded, I was at her house for the weekend. I was under strict, you can't do anything fun rules. But I had a friend that lived across the street, and he was having a bunch of other people over playing basketball outside. Amma told me to go hang out with them and then proceeded to bake a whole tray of cookies and make us hot chocolate and bring it out so we could all enjoy. When I was in high school, I went over to my Amma and Papa's house for lunch one day. Amma was in a lot of pain, but of course she didn't want to bake hurrah. She always had to hide what was really hurting her because she didn't want anybody else to feel hurt. Well, after a little while passed and seeing how bad she was, I had to call the paramedics to come because something was very wrong. She told me to tell them to drive very slow and don't put on any lights. It was when I finished school for the day that my mom had told me she had a heart attack. Once, on the way to the States, Amma bought a bottle of liqueur called Hot Sex at duty free. When it was time to head back to Canada, Amma realized she couldn't bring the bottle back. So she went around the hotel, knocking on doors, asking people if they wanted some hot sex. She couldn't let the hot sex go to waste. I always said that Amma was like a cat. She had 9 lives. That woman experienced more in her life than many of us ever could experience. I remember when she had encephalitis, we were all standing around her singing, "You Are My Sunshine," and she hadn't really opened her eyes for a day or talked, and we were all getting fairly nervous that it was near the end. I was very pregnant at the time, and I had been standing and someone had offered me a chair to sit down. When Amma heard that I was there, she sat up, eyes opened as wide as she could, and said, "Katie's having the baby now?" We all started laughing pretty hard. Amma always wanted to hold your hand when you talked to her, and I think it was her way of connecting with you and trying to take whatever you were feeling and putting it all on her. She never wanted anybody to feel bad, and she never wanted to hurt anyone. Amma always called me and my sisters her daughters as well. We were all really close with her, and lots of times in the hospital, she wouldn't quite remember everything properly. She would say that we were all her daughters. One day I said, "Amma, you know what? You were right. We are like your daughters. You carried me in your belly without even knowing it." And she kind of looked at me funny, and I said, "Well, when a woman gives birth to a female is born with all the eggs that she will ever carry in her entire life. So I was in my mom when you were pregnant with her. So you're like my mom." In October, I had a surgery, and it was one that Amma had also had in the past. Amma wanted to see my incisions. She was asking about them and remembering her own, and I showed her, and she said, "Why are they so small?" And I said, "Well, they can do surgeries laparoscopically now." And she said, "Oh, Katie, you should have seen what they did to me. They just buttoned me up." I don't think anybody can ever stop talking about her, and I think that's one way that she will always live on. She was so freaking special, had a heart of gold, and she will always be here with the most brilliant, twinkling blue-eyed angel there ever was. I love you all, Mom.
I'm Whitley, Ingrid's 3rd daughter. You know when there is that special person in your life that confronts you? She didn't confront us. Comforts you and makes you feel seen and heard, who always is present in the moment. Amma was that to me and to so many. As a child, Amma was always at our events, as my sister said, cheering us on. She helped my mom with guiding sessions and became Amma to so many more than just my friends, or just my sisters and cousins, also to my friends. Amma had the charm of her words, but also her actions. In one occasion, I, being the naughty child, not wanting to nap at all it took was Amma clapping and I was straight to sleep. She was also caring when we were ill. Amma would feed us her amazing chicken soups and hot toddies. Those hot toddies filled with extra sugar and maybe even a dash or more of whiskey. help us recover. When I think of her home-cooked meals, when I think of anyone's home-cooked meals, it's always Ama's. Her potatoes, no matter any style she made, they were just mouth-watering. They had the perfect amount of salt, and they were just dripping in butter. Amma was proud of her Icelandic heritage, robing us in her Icelandic sweaters, and introducing us to local sweets. Mesoyster, which is a caramel butter, Icelandic brown bread, vinatarta, and pannukakers, thin pancakes that are filled with brown sugar. I tried to make them today. I'm sorry. All staples around the house and cottage. Her baking was the best. She would always send us care packages of her treats, regardless of if it was an evening studying or going on ventures across the world. You could always guarantee in one of those care packages, she'd slip in 1 or 2, probably more, of her cookies or scones with scraped off burnt bottoms. Over the decade, these burnt edges became a staple flavor. Ladies, the ones who made the cookies today, thank you for making Amma touches. On each plate, there should be at least 1 burnt cookie. As Amanda mentioned, Amma would take us to many plays, introducing us to the art of acting and music. Some things you could count on was that she'd bring candy, and they were the loudest candy, and she'd start opening them at the most inopportune times, or just saying, "This is fantastic," when it was silent. It was a sure thing that on our way to Gibby's Corner, we'd stop in Toulon for ice cream, or at Fraserwood Hotel, sending us little ones into the bar to retrieve this mouth-watering farmer sausage as she waited in the car. Even though Fraserwood was literally around the corner from the cottage, Amma would always break off a piece to let us sample before we continued on our way. Amma introduced my sisters and I to the Eagles Club. She was always so eager to share, a dinner coming up, or that they needed help. I just loved watching her anytime she attended, interacting with others, and showing off her loving presence she illuminated. I am still in awe of how she was always ready with a big smile and loving hug. When I started at the U of M, Amma and Papa would let me park in their house, on their front lawn actually. They did not care how it looked or the amount of grass it ruined. They were just happy to support myself and my sisters in our scholarly journey. After a long day at university, I'd enter their house to a table full of art supplies, letters midway written, and articles she wanted to share with you. She was our information station. Amma's energy was so grounding. It took a touch of her hand to calm your nerves, or a sound of her breath nap to calm the soul. Her cuddles were just the best. Amma often asked for my opinion with her latest painting, frequently disregarding anything I said, and then adding this final touch to completely change the feel. Amma always had a way with taking photos. She just could not sit still. It was very rare that you'd get a photo of Amma smiling and looking directly at the camera. Instead, she would be continuing talking midway, so her mouth open, or her arms posed, any which way. Trying to reach Amma by phone was the hardest task. The line was always busy. You'd call and call and call to hopefully get her in a moment of break, but that was a rare case. She spent countless hours on the phone to this friend or that family member. Living close to her made it easy to quickly stop by to make sure she was okay. She always was okay, because you'd find her, phone in hand. Those who knew Amma knew that she loved going to the casino, so naturally, She was sad when COVID hit and lockdown shut down the city. Cam and I introduced her to online gambling, and she was hooked. Together we played with winnings for over 6 months. It was often an evening spectacle of us playing and Dad saying, cash out, cash out, cash out, and Amma just clicking, click, 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 with the biggest smile on her face. She eagerly awaited for the next time we could gamble together. A number of times Amma would share about her friend. The number of times Amma would share about her friends was so heartwarming. Through Amma, I learned so many families from near and far and their adventures and current updates in their lives. During art shows, she'd escort us proudly around the gallery, not only to show us the love of art and explaining the different mediums and viewpoints, but also introducing us to her many friends. It wasn't until helping her mail her 150 plus Christmas cards that the majority of names I knew. Amma truly was blessed with family, friends, and kind souls here today. This extended not only in her circle, but my mom's circle, and mine and my sister's. It was just the other day that a family friend shared a story of their grandchild learning that Amma was in fact not their grandma. His response was, I wish she was. Everyone in the room knows, even though not necessarily by blood, she was indeed family and Amma to so many. Amma taught me so much throughout life. The biggest in the last years was to live with no regret. Even though she was the most outgoing individual I know, who never said no, and who would make a special trip for anyone, she often shared moments of regret of not doing something when she was able. As hard as COVID was, it was a blessing that my husband and I got to move in with Mom and Dad just after she did. It was the greatest gift I could have gotten from her. That extra time, the extra moments of creating memories. We have been blessed with this angel throughout our lives, and now in spirit. Memories of her hang all over our walls, and I'm just so blessed. She lives in my heart forever. I love you, Mama. Hi, I'm Abby, the youngest of Lil's grandkids, and in true Lil fashion, I wrote my speech at 12:30 in the morning last night. As we know, she was always just a second behind or needed one more minute to finish something up. So as I began writing this, memories continued to pop into my head, and I was really conflicted on what I wanted to share. Do I talk about the time that Amma took me to see Elvis impersonators with a purse full of beer, or the time she accidentally cut a part of the dog's tongue off while giving him a haircut? Or how about when you would walk into her house, coming to get her to go out, to find her sitting at the kitchen table in her nightgown, curlers in her hair, and probably on the phone? I never truly understood how special my Amma was until I was old enough to realize how involved she was in our lives and the community. She would come to as many sporting events as possible, Girl Guides to teach us how to paint, and pick us up to take us to the cabin or welcome us over anytime. I was always so proud to introduce her to people because I knew that she would take the time to get to know them and always shower them with love. The fact that all my friends know her as Amma and frequently ask about her proves how special she was. Growing up, I was always excited for sleepovers at Amma's. You could guarantee that there'd be a tasty homemade breakfast with fruit salad, crafts, and watching Amma make the dog sneeze for a piece of toast. There's 2 stories of sleeping over at Amma's that I would like to share. The first is, in the middle of the night, one time Amma heard the toilet downstairs running. Without going to investigate, she came to the conclusion that there must be someone down there trying to lure us down there by making the toilet run. Since Papa was in Arborg, she quickly called my dad, and we waited. While we were waiting, we closed the door from the kitchen to the basement,
and she put a chair there. And on the chair, she loaded up her pots and pans. Surely that'll keep the stranger from coming upstairs, or at least slowing him down from catching us. Thankfully, the toilet was just running on its own and not involved in any sort of elaborate plan. Another time, Papa was away and I was sharing the bed with Amma. In the middle of the night, I got up to pee when my arm was abruptly grabbed by her. She was in a panic and told me, "You can't get out of bed. The floor is not safe." And I pleaded with her, I'm like, "Amma, I have to pee." And I mean, you can only plead with a sleep-talking woman for so long. And I ended up peeing the bed because she just wouldn't let me go. Years ago, Amma and I created a watercolor painting together. And although she did the majority of the sketching and painting, she would always claim it was a joint effort. We didn't finish the painting that day, the day that we started it, and Amma would continue to remind me that it had to be finished. She went to the extent of bringing it to the pharmacy I was working at with watercolor pencils and a paintbrush in hand, promising me it would only take a few minutes to finish. I was busy at work and didn't have the moment, so it remained unfinished. We couldn't find the painting for a number of years until Mom found it in November tucked inside a book. I came over one day to finish it, and Amma just wasn't in the mood. So unfortunately, we never have finished painting it, but I know when I do, Amma will be there with me in spirit. I guess my sister already talked about this, but Amma did love to give people heck in the kitchen, especially making those fancy sandwiches. You would always hear, "You're not doing it right," or "Let me do it." And she usually would end up taking over. She also, like Whitley had mentioned, was a woman of so much information. You could always count on her to tell you what was going on in the news or what is happening in the city. And I remember one time we were visiting her. We thought it might be the last of her days when she had encephalitis. She was not really awake, and then a couple hours later, she's sitting up and telling us how, "Did you know that chiclets come off chiclet trees? Look it up." And we're like, "Where is this coming from?" But you could always count on some sort of information from her. Brock and I have had the privilege of living in Amma and Papa's house for the last 3 years. The groundwork that she laid in creating friendships in the neighborhood have rolled over onto Brock and I. We have been blessed with great neighbors that are always keeping an eye out for us and that will stop and take the time to chat with us. Amma was not only a keeper of experiences, but also things. Her basement was a collection of many different things that were given to her and that she had found over the years. When Amma was living at Mom and Dad's place, she would call me and ask me to bring a specific box over, and then tell me exactly where it was in the basement, and to no surprise, it was exactly where she said it was. In the final weeks leading up to Amma's passing, there are a few memories that I will always hold close to my heart. In October, my parents put an art show on for Amma in their garage. Her paintings were hung, dainties were served, and many friends came to visit. I loved watching Amma's face light up as people walked into the garage. She sat in the middle there, waiting for hugs and conversation throughout the day. The night before Amma moved into the PCH, Brock and I went over to my parents to watch a Christmas movie. Amma, Mom and Dad, Uncle Wes, Brock and I all cozied up to watch The Grinch. It's one of those moments that didn't feel significant at the time, but it's one that I will always keep in my memory and cherish. The day that Amma moved into the PCH, my mom asked me to check in on her on my way home from work. I picked up a few scratch tickets, because you know Amma likes to gamble, and I headed there. Brock joined us a while later. Because the TV wasn't set up in her room yet, we were blessed with stories from Amma that I had never heard before. She told us about her love for dancing and about the time that her and her friends broke into the school at night and threw a dance party. If there's a few lessons I've learned from Amma that I can leave you with today, they are: don't be afraid to stray off the beaten path. You never know what treasures you may find. There's beauty all around you. You just have to slow down for a moment to see it. Don't let others tell you what you can or cannot do. Just try the damn thing. And treat others with kindness and be willing to help when the help is needed and when it's not. Thank you.
I'm Ingrid. Hi, everybody. In the past few years, with Mom's different health issues, I have had more than one opportunity to think about today. And honestly, today came way too fast. As a young girl, one of my favorite times was when Mom would tell us about our childhood memories. I remember laughing until my sides hurt, and it didn't matter how many times we heard those stories, she always did it in a very entertaining way. I always looked forward to the next story time, whatever my age. I have heard many stories these past few years that I don't think I would have ever heard if we didn't spend so much time together. Usually when we were driving to appointments, or sometimes in the evenings at her bedside. I really got to see a different side of Mom. Some hardships, some woeful times, stories that she wouldn't have told a younger me. I will hold these memories as our special time together. Mom was unique, interesting, knowledgeable, a storyteller, always entertaining. She was talented, loving, a very well-rounded lady. She could use an axe or a needle and thread. She could hit a ball, light up her room, or paint beautiful artwork and excel at all equally. She was never bored or boring. She had a full life like a kaleidoscope, mixing stories, love, kindness together, creating a full, colorful life of beauty. Growing up, Mom was always present. She took time to do lots with Lorna, Wes, and I. We had many animals, cats, dogs, rabbits, chickens, even 12 geese that traveled back and forth to the cabin with us. One special goose named Myrtle. The entire neighborhood got to know Myrtle, our goose. Anyone who would call over the fence, "Hi, Myrtle," Myrtle would answer back with a big honk. Mom would take us to the cabin the day school ended, and we'd not come back to the city until the night before it started again. At the lake, Mom taught us to chop wood without losing any toes. We built bonfires. We learned how to whittle and whistle like a loon. She built a treehouse with us, including a ladder so Smoocher, our dog, could have sleepovers up there with us. She passed on her love of fishing. She thought nothing of filling her scout with the Franz kids and us and whoever else wanted to come and head to the shores of Lake Winnipeg or one of the piers. We would spend the day fishing, having a bonfire on the beach quite often, either to cook dinner or hot dogs or warm up. With limits filled and dusk setting in, we'd head back to the cabin. She taught us all to fillet fish in the kitchen, around the kitchen table, until she realized that with a flick of our hands or the swipe of a knife, fish guts were ending up all over the place. So the picnic table outside became the new spot. Mom would let us drive our dirt bikes along as long as we tried to stay out of sight of the RCMP. When the RM put up a sign stating no motorbikes in our area, late one night, she took tar and painted it. When the replacement sign came up, we helped her take it down and became wood for our next bonfire. Mom would take us on rides down the back roads to pick berries or crocuses or maybe lady slippers, or let us ride the dirt bikes to the gravel pits or up to Arberg to visit the relatives. One year, Mom and Dad were headed to Arberg down those back roads and saw a sunburnt pig running amongst the tree line. They scrambled after it, caught it, put it in the car. Auntie Thode and Uncle Kristen ended up with a new pig that day, They all decided to call it Trudeau. Mom and Dad taught us the love of nature and the beauty of the world around us. Packing up the truck and camper, we headed across Canada, up to Alaska, or down to California. We visited relatives along the way and camping in some very remote areas. Mom had to barter once to get gas, tuna and salmon in exchange for gas so we could keep going. No bank machines back then. We learned to pan for gold, walk into the midnight sun, and fry an egg in the heat of the California sun on the road. Mom was a dreamer and a sleepwalker. From a very young age, there's so many stories. I remember out at the cabin once, through the night, this horrible noise that just wouldn't quit. I was terrified to move. I didn't know what was going on. It was Mom. She dreamt that a hot air balloon was falling in around her, and she screamed so loud and for so long that she woke up everybody from at least 3 other cabins. For over a week, she didn't have a voice, and she had damaged her vocal cords. Mom also had a huge piece of soapstone that she always had the intentions of carving. It was in Tulane Bay just by the front door. One night when she was up sleepwalking, she thought it was some critter running through the house, and she kicked it. And she broke her big toe. I have that soapstone now in my garage, so maybe I'll carve it into an animal or a big toe. As we grew up, Mom supported us in sports, guides, and scouts. Mom became the Girl Guide leader with Helen, Wynn, Freddie, Florence, and Rita. What lucky girls we were to have these ladies as our leaders, teaching us skills from lashing. Thanks, Cindy. My mouth is dry. Thanks, Mom. Lashing, canoeing down the LaSalle River to wilderness camping in the middle of the bush in the Interlake. No tents, just axes, rope, and poly. We had to build our own shelters, tie our food up in trees. Apparently there was cougars around. And even make our own flagpole. Yes, it did rain, and yeah, we stayed dry. They taught us well. I remember a few times Mom's bra and underwear ended up as props in our camp skits. And one time when the flag was left at home, that's where her bra went, up the flagpole. Lorna, Wes, and I began to play sports, Wes running in the Flying M Track Club. Mom was our biggest cheerleader and was introduced into the road of coaching, managing, and convening. Mom was amongst the first to help when Ringette was introduced into Fort Richmond, advocating for us girls to get ice and helping mend old hockey jerseys for us to wear, driving girls to the rink, filling her truck with as many girls as an equipment possible, only half the time for her to say, "Where is my purse?" And it was usually left on the fence post at home or on the roof of her vehicle. She actually did it so often, somebody made a cartoon of it. It's over there. Mom was the general manager of Lorna's Ringette team, with both Wes Belliot and Gary Johnston. Over the years, creating strong teams, winning many tournaments and national championships. The team celebrations were fun, making many memories and strong friendships that lasted a lifetime. Over the years, Mom coached the ladies' Richmond Rowdies team as well, and I believe these ladies had as many giggles as they ever did goals. Mom took her baseball talent and coached both Lorna and I at different times. Helen, Laura, Allie, and Gary. Again, she was a part of creating champion teams. Her ability to pass on her skills was incredible. Camaraderie and fun was always just as important as winning. I remember We Are the Champions playing when we won the provincials. It was during this time that our garage and house became the meeting spot for fundraising. The garage filling with newspapers to be bundled for the Boy Scouts and a trip to PEI, telephone books or samples to be delivered, and the garage sales, the gathering of everyone's treasures. So many great ways to raise money for our teams. Our garage was always full, but not very often with vehicles. Mom had her smiling face painted on the hall at the club, along with some of the other powerhouses of that era. She was someone that did make an impact with her volunteerism in the neighborhood. Throughout Mom's life, she became a second mother, an advocate, a confidant, and sometimes a partner in crime to many young people. Many of them stayed in touch through the years, including her in their life events, would come to visit her at home, the cabin, the hospital, or taking her out for an afternoon event. They made her feel special right up until the end. She did, just as she did while they were young. I can't say how much these times meant to her. We spoke of that often. When I became a mom, my girls were blessed with the most amazing Emma. She spent a lot of time with all of her granddaughters, Mom and Dad taking them to the lake, camping, or on some road trips. She became a fan of their activities, even traveling across Canada to cheer on their success. She continued to be a mentor and a teacher and became known as Amma, everyone's Amma. As my girls became older and moms themselves, Mom and Dad Mom and Dad being so close to them began to think of them as an extension of themselves and would introduce them as their daughters. The girls had a very special relationship with both of them. Mom was thrilled to become a great Amma. She looked forward to visit every visit with the great grandkids. As babies, she wanted to see them on the blanket in front of her just to watch them. As they grew, she loved the story times by the bonfires, either listening to their stories or them hearing hers. She loved our trips to Gimli, looking at the spots to find lucky rocks, our walks down the pier, and ice cream or fries along the shore before we went home. Mom painted with the grandkids and encouraged their creativity. This past summer, Mom taught 4 of the kids how to can Polish pickles. Lots of garlic, lots of laughter, some cubes for the jar, and some for your mouth. She loved to hear the kids play and laugh. Even their screams brought her joy. Mom and I had lots of opportunities to do so many special things together, from the theater, all kinds of concerts. We even had some in our own house. We even had some opportunities to travel to Arizona with my friends and Abby. We had a great road trip between Mesa and Las Vegas to see Carlos Santana. We almost lost Mom amongst the machines. She loved to gamble. We went to see Uncle Mickey, Mom's brother, and his family. We always hope to get back there again. In 2018, after Mom's first stroke, Mom's activities changed a bit, but certainly not who she was. Our time together began to shift as I became more active in both Mom and Dad's lives. These are times I will never regret. My understanding of Mom grew deeper, my respect for who she was more intense. It wasn't all easy. I know as her independence lessened, it was incredibly difficult for her. But as with everything in life, she took it in stride, the best she could, moving forward and looking on the bright side. Now, I want to take a little commercial here, because I didn't write this, but I think you need to know. Just after her stroke, Mom and Dad ended up at the casino one night, and I had no idea, but at 10:30 one night, I ended up with a phone call. It was Mom, Ingrid, Dad's in the car. It was February, I think, it was cold. Dad's in the car. Okay. He's been out there for an hour and he's gonna be so damn mad at me. Okay. My machine's paying. It's got a crowd around me. The security guards are here. I don't know how much money, but we're over $6,000 already. Okay, Mom, call me when you get home. So when she got home about 12:30 at night, so Dad now has been sitting in the car for all that time. He was no longer mad. I'm not sure how much money she actually won. She came home with $6,400 because security walked her to the car and she said she was handing money out to everybody, thanking them. And then another time, now I'm blank. Where's my envelope there, guys? Where's my envelope? No, not that one. The one side. Is it? Okay. Oh yeah, I got it now. Bonnie and Clyde. Who knew they were Bonnie and Clyde? They both, at one point, they both lost their license. And one day Dad was reading this paper, he said, I can get my license back. And I thought, oh no. Where, Dad, if you get your license back, where are you gonna drive? Because he wasn't in great shape. Ingrid, just around the neighborhood. And this all worked to, I was just gonna be leaving out of the country. And home care had been set up for Mom and all this. So I said, okay, you promised me you're staying in the neighborhood. Yeah. So we were on holidays out of the country for about 2 days when my phone rang, and it was home care. Ingrid, your parents aren't home. Oh, okay, so I thought for a second, I said, go outside and look in the garage. There's a window there. Is the car there? No, it's not there. So I called Helen, called Wes, called a few other people. Nobody knew where Mom and Dad were. But about 4 hours later, I kept calling them every half an hour. I got a very happy little, we made it to South Beach Casino. Bonnie and Clyde were breaking the rules all over again. You gotta appreciate the gumption, hey? During this time, I began to see Mom as a gatherer. I spent a lot of time getting to know her friends in a different way. The Eagles Club ladies, her art group, the Trefoil Guild, her friends. I realized that Mom gathered and surrounded herself with selfless, kind, loving, giving people so much like herself. Mom always brought the best out in people. She always took time to ask questions, and she was interested in the answers. Mom's entire life, she always made sure she had enough clothes, toques, mitts, scarves to make whoever was cold warm. She had extra tent poles or pegs just in case at camping. Snacks, you never know when somebody might be hungry. Some extra cash to make sure everyone for an activity could be included. And a lot of times, a backpack full of liquor, so even the best times could be a little bit better. As a matter of fact, just after COVID hit, Mom was living with us. She came with me to Fabricland. She had to stay in the car as per the restrictions, so I parked at the front door, rolled down the window. What could go wrong? Some nice young gentleman came to the car and asked if she had an extra mask. He wanted to go in and pick his mom up as a Mother's Day gift. Mom proudly handed her one of the masks that I had made. He proceeded to go in, steal a whole bunch of merchandise, jump on his bike, and got a clean getaway. When I realized what had happened, I went outside to see if she was okay. Shaken up, she couldn't believe what had just occurred. Rick and I teased her, telling her the police were going to be looking for her as an accomplice to the crime. The next day at 7-Eleven, again by the front door, window down, another young guy came to her, asking her for money. She says, "Wait till my daughter comes back," and proceeded to find out his entire story. After that, she didn't come out with me unless there was 3 of us, so she wasn't in the car alone, because I certainly didn't want to know what was going to happen next. In Mom's entire life, she wasn't one to put herself first. She was a giver. It was important for her to come to any event with something to share, a poem, a specially painted lucky rock, photos that suited the event, maybe some of her baking, or a handful of cards to share. Through her artwork, Mom will be remembered, but also by her handwritten notes. She had a beautiful way with words. I have had so many people say that they have kept Mom's meaningful special letters. Going through many of Mom's papers, I found so many notes, tidbits of events, words of love written to someone special, and many with guidance for today. A year ago, when she was stable in a Winnipeg hospital, she was transferred via transport plane to Deloraine Hospital. When I called prior to her arrival, the nurse asked what they needed to know about her beside the usual stuff. I told her that Mom was a thief. "What?" she said. I said, "She'll steal your heart. She's an incredible lady and you'll love having her there." When I finally got to visit Mom, the nurse found me and told me how right I was. Mom always felt as if she needed more time. She felt as if she had lots more to do, places to see, letters to write, friends to reach out to. She was never tired of life. She was always positive. I told her very close to the end that I thought she'd live forever. She found something special in every day, even her hardest ones. As we became sidekicks, we enjoyed every adventure we could. Rick and I tried to keep Mom's life very full, or as full as possible. Rick was such a great support, and she just loved him so much. I told Mom often how much she was loved. She spent so much time spreading her love. Many times she didn't see all of the love that was sent to her, the love she gathered and nurtured. In the end, the best way I can describe Mom is the richest woman I know. Rich in love, generosity, rich in experience, friendship, rich in kindness. She was a treasure, pure gold, with the most brilliant blue eyes. I was blessed and am so proud to call her my mom.